Okay, how to hold your yarn and your hook and how to do a slip knot. So when you're doing a slip knot, you bring your yarn across your hand and then you're going to bring it back around your two first fingers and make an X. And then you'll flip that over and you have two bars on the back of your hand. And then you can either use your finger or you can use your hook and you can grab that yarn and then you pull the cut end and your hook and then you can pull that knot tight. And that's how you do a slip knot. We'll do that one more time for you. So you have your yarn across, you bring your working yarn. So the yarn going back to your ball is called your working yarn. You bring it across around your two main fingers, across the top, around the back, and it's underneath the first one. And then you can put your finger or your hook underneath the yarn and you can just pull that tight. You pull on the cut end and on the loop. What's great about a slip knot is that it allows you to tighten the knot or loosen the knot. If you pull on the loop, you can loosen it. And if you pull on the working yarn that's going back to your ball, you can make it tighter. All right, so when you have your hook inside of your yarn, you want to make sure it's not too tight. You don't want it to be sticking and hard to move. It also makes it so it's difficult for the hook to get through if it's too tight. So I'm going to loosen that off just a bit. And so now my hook can move freely through the yarn. Now, when you're holding your yarn and your hook, you want to make sure that your hands can stay really relaxed. Sometimes I see crocheters that, especially when you're starting, that want to like grip the yarn and clench your fingers really tight. You want to see how relaxed you can leave your fingers. If they curl a little bit, that's okay. You just don't want to be clenching really hard because that's going to put tension on your wrist long term. It's normal to have tired hands to begin with when you're starting. You know, you're working new muscles, you have new ways of moving your hands, so you're going to have some tired muscles. But if you're getting soreness in your joints and it's lasting beyond a week or two if you're crocheting every day, then you probably have some grip problems that you're dealing with. So this is how I like to hold my yarn, to be able to limit how much tension I'm putting on my hands and my wrists. So I wrap the yarn around my finger and then I bring it underneath my ring finger, over my middle finger, and under my pointer finger. And then I have this yarn that's coming over my pointer finger here. Now, the reason I wrap like this is that it provides what's called tension. So if I just have my yarn loose, it's really hard to control the yarn. And that's why people end up gripping it, because they want more control. They need more tension. They need to be able to have that yarn become tight so that they can grip it with their hook. If it's loose, you can't really grip it and bring it to your loop very well. You see how I'm struggling to do that. But when I wrap it around my fingers, it provides tension, but still lets the yarn move through my fingers. So now I have a lot more control over how my hook and my yarn are interacting. So now I can pull that through quite easily, if you can see. Now the way I hold my hook, a lot of people will hold their hook different ways. I've seen people who hold their hook where they guide with their pointer finger. I don't usually do that, so that it's a little awkward for me. I like to have a grip like this. So my fingers are relatively loose. Yes, they're curled, but they're not gripping really tight. They're still relatively relaxed. And then I guide with my thumb. But if you guide with your pointer finger, or if you have another way that works for you, then by all means use that. This is just what works well for me. So then I have the ability to move my hook in any direction I want. I can turn it easily, and then I can control with my thumb where it's going. So that is how I hold my yarn and my hook. So the next thing that we're going to go over is how to do a chain stitch. So I've actually done a couple chain stitches already here as I was showing you how I move my hook around and hold it. So a chain stitch is often what's used as a foundation for the beginning of a crochet project, especially something that has straight lines, like an Afghan or something like that. Not as much for granny squares or if you're crocheting in the round. So I'd get my yarn set up here. And the chain stitch is kind of the foundation for learning all the other stitches as well. So what you do is you have your hook and then you go underneath the yarn. This is called a yarn over. So yarn over. So now I actually have two bits of yarn on my hook. I have the original loop and I have the yarn over. The yarn over doesn't count as a loop. That's your yarn over. So then I can pull that through the loop. Now, if I go with the hook facing upward, it's going to get caught on my loop like that. So if you go under your yarn and turn downward and pull through the loop, then it goes much more smoothly. So I'll do that again. So I go yarn over, turn my hook down, it catches on the yarn, and then I can pull it through the loop. Now when you're doing your chain stitch, you want to make sure that your yarn is not too tight. So part of the reason I have it going over my finger the way I do is that I can control the tension and how tight it is. So let me just pull that a little bit here because my tension's a little loose for demonstrating this. Okay, so if my loops are too tight, I can pull with my hook to loosen them up. And if they're too loose, I can pull with my finger and tighten them. You see how I can kind of go back and forth there. Now, it might feel awkward when you're starting, but the sooner you can learn how to hold your yarn well, the easier it's going to be for you to be able to start moving more quickly with your projects and be able to crochet for longer periods of time. So we'll do that chain stitch again. So yarn over, and then I turn my hook down and I pull it through the loop. Yarn over, turn my hook down and pull it through the loop. You don't want your chains too tight. So one of the things that's going to happen in the future when you're learning new stitches is your hook is going to have to be able to go into these stitches. So if I have my yarn really tight, I might be able to get the thing through. Do a couple of really tight stitches here for you. But then I have a hard time getting into that stitch later. And it can also start causing some strange warping things and that kind of thing because your chain gets really tight, but then your stitches later might be looser. So if you can practice making your chain so it's not super tight, but it is closed. You also don't want it like really loosey-goosey like this where you have lots of open space unless you're going for a very, very loose crochet. So trying to find good tension is one of the biggest struggles when you're starting. So if you can see, these ones are just having a hard time keeping their shape, and that's not really what you want either. So you want to try to keep it so that your tension is keeping the shape of the chain stitch, but you can still easily go into that chain stitch to make another stitch. So that is how you do your chain stitch. Okay, so one thing I wanted to go over is that if you make a mistake, you can do something called frogging with your work. And it's so handy with crochet that it's easy to undo your mistakes. It's just a pain if you notice late in your project if the mistake is way further back, like hours of work back. And then you kind of have to make a choice whether or not it's worth just leaving the mistake in or if it's worth frogging it. Frogging's very easy. You just pull on the loops and they pop right out. So now I can go back and I can fix those loosey-goosey stitches that I had done there. And just make my chain so it's all nice and even. Now we're going to do single crochet. So when you start single crochet, you need to count 2 stitches back from your hook. So the loop on your hook doesn't count as a stitch. This is the first stitch, and then this is the second stitch. When you do single crochet, you're going to go into that second stitch. So there's the bottom of the loop here. That's the bottom of the second stitch, and this is the top. So I'm going to go into the top and I'm going to yarn over like I do with a chain stitch, and I'm going to pull that through that chain stitch that I just went into. So now I have 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to yarn over again, and I'm going to pull that through both of those loops, and that is a single crochet stitch. I'll do that again. So into the next chain stitch, so that was the one that I did before. I'm going to go into the next one, and then I'm going to yarn over, pull that through the stitch. Now I have 2 loops on my hook. I can yarn over now, and I'm going to pull through both loops. Do that again. Into the next stitch, yarn over, pull that through the stitch, yarn over again, and pull through both loops. I'm going to keep doing that as I go down the row. So yarn over, pull through the stitch, yarn over again, and pull through both loops. And I'm just going to continue that all the way down the row. Oh, apparently I made those first couple stitches a little bit tight. All right. So that is 1 row of single crochet. All right, so when you're starting your second row of double crochet, you're going to start with a chain stitch. So just like when we were doing the chain stitch at the bottom, we're going to yarn over and pull through. So there's just the 1 loop on your hook, you yarn over and pull through that loop. Now we're going to turn our work, and now we're going to single crochet across that first single crochet row that we just did. So we find our stitch. So this is my chain stitch, and then this is my first single crochet stitch. So I'm going to go into that stitch. Now when you look at the top of it, you can see that these each have that kind of arrowhead or braid type shape. And that is 1 stitch. 1 set of those 2 loops is 1 stitch. So we're going to go under those 2 loops. We're going to yarn over, pull through, and now I have 2 loops on my hook. I'll yarn over and pull through both the loops. So into the next stitch, yarn over and pull through both loops. And then we'll yarn over and pull through them again. And we're just going to single crochet all the way across the row. Now, make sure you're paying attention to your tension and that you're not pulling everything super, super tight, because you still have to crochet into these stitches again in the future. Now, this was that chain one that I skipped and the extra one to be able to start my first single crochet stitch on the first row. So I'm actually going to go into that chain one and I'm going to do a single crochet there as well. Now, if I look at how many stitches I have, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I am going to want to try my best to maintain that number of stitches if I'm trying to get a straight project. So if I'm trying to make a rectangle, I want to make sure every row has those 7 stitches. If I drop a stitch, it's going to start veering inward. If I add a stitch, it's going to start veering outward. And there are lots of interesting things that you can start to do for patterns when you learn how to use dropped and picked up stitches. Increases and decreases, they're usually called in a pattern. But right now we just want to make a rectangle. So count your stitches at the end of your row. And if you're starting to see like an inward type of shape happening or an outward shape happening, that means you're either adding stitches if it's going in or dropping, or adding stitches if it's going out, sorry, or dropping stitches if it's going in. It also could mean that your tension is either getting looser if it's going out, or it's getting tighter if it's going in. But most often it's that you're adding or you're dropping stitches. So the third row you're going to continue just like you did the second row. So you're going to chain 1 at the end, turn over your work, and then into the next stitch, and you're just going to crochet all the way across, doing those single crochet stitches where you go under the stitch, yarn over, pull through. You got the 2 loops, and you just pull through both loops. And to make a rectangle, you're just going to continue this all the way up for however large you want your rectangle to be. So now that you know how to crochet and you can crochet a rectangle, I have the perfect little project that you can do, and it will only take you a day or 2, and you'll be able to have something that you made in your hands ready to use. It's this little crochet headband for fall and for winter. And I have in my tutorial, I have all the sizes from newborn right to adult. So you can make it for yourself or whoever in your life would appreciate a wonderful crocheted handmade gift from you. You can find the tutorial in my community on Skool. It's the Crochet Cottage, and that tutorial will be in the courses if you are ready to go ahead and jump in and finish it. We'll see you in the community.